What's up, Beatle people of YouTube? I'm back. The big documentary, Beatles, Ron Howard, 8 days a week. Big news. Of course, everyone's been writing into me like, John, have you seen it? John, what do you think of it? It took me a minute to get this review out because the weekend that we saw it in the theaters was a busy one. Saw the movie on a Friday night. Last Friday night, the night before, Thursday night, the night before, I was at Harrah's in Atlantic City playing with Chuck Negron, great gig. Friday night we saw the movie. Then Saturday night I was at Westbury Music Fair in New York with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. And then last Sunday night, I was at Radio City Music Hall watching Jeff Lynne's ELO, a mind-blowing gig. I can't even get into it because I want to talk about this Beatles movie. Loved it. It was great. Highly recommend it. We've heard the story told a million times, but Ron Howard really brought it to life on the big screen with a fresh perspective. He managed to capture the feeling, the madness, and the excitement of this phenomenon called Beatlemania from the inside, from the band's perspective, and from the outside, from the public's perspective. There's quite a few testimonials from people who saw them, celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg and Sigourney Weaver, Larry Kane, who's the journalist that traveled with them for a while. But he also places them in the context of the times, especially in America, with JFK being assassinated and the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War. No huge revelations. Nothing that I really didn't know before. In fact, some of the interview clips of John Lennon and George Harrison are recycled from the anthology. And those of you out there with the Beatles eagle eye, the Beatle eye, will catch which ones those are. I brought my daughter with me. She's 8. And in all the concert footage, anytime the Beatles were playing, she was like bopping in her seat like this, like just couldn't stop dancing. And anytime they showed screaming girls, she was laughing. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world to see these girls completely losing it and crying, which is another kind of statement on the times. Because let's face it, audiences don't lose it for performers like that anymore. The screening that we went to also showed the restored Shea Stadium film, which was a disappointment. For all the big talk about the 4K restoration and everything, it just seemed like a hasty job. They had done a Shea Stadium film back in the day. I think it was broadcast on TV or something like that. And they used like the old title of that, which was fine. Great timepiece. Visually, it looks great. They did whatever the 4K thing to restore the picture. It's fantastic. Audio, big disappointment, man. I gotta say, it's been well documented that when they did the Shea Stadium film, they went back and fixed a lot of the audio, going so far as to like re-record some parts and stuff like that. The audio on this new restoration sounds like this weird amalgam of like the original audio from the concert, the re-recorded, doctored tracks that they did in the 60s for that film, and the studio versions. It's weird. You'd be listening and you're watching, and then you hear a vocal that sounds really perfect, and then you realize, wait a second, that's the studio version from the record. What's up with this? Again, the beatards among us with the eagle ears are going to catch this. I have heard the undoctored Shea Stadium audio. It's available. It's out there. It's raw, and it's sloppy, and it's noisy. But if you're going to put this film out as a historical document, use the undoctored audio. In fact, probably, if it hasn't happened already, maybe some wise guy on the internet will take the undoctored, unpolished Shea Stadium audio track and sync it up to the video. And it's too many cutaways to the crowds losing it and screaming. Like, I get it. It was, yes, the crowd was going nuts. I get it. It just felt a little unnecessary on top of all the other excellent live footage that they had, which is the other thing I really loved about the Ron Howard film. A lot of live footage that we've never seen, a lot of home movies and stuff like that. You really get a sense of what those guys sounded like as a band and what it felt like Personally, my favorite live performance of the Beatles is the rooftop concert, but we're not going to get into that now, are we? I do want to mention the Live at the Hollywood Bowl CD. I pre-ordered this bad boy on Amazon. It arrived on a Friday afternoon. That night, I was working in New Jersey with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I had an hour-long drive to the gig. The CD arrived just in time for me to listen to it in the car on the drive on the highway. Sounded tremendous. Got to the gig. I went up to Gary. I was like, hey, I got the new Live at the Hollywood Bowl CD from the Beatles. He goes, really? I was at that concert. He said it was nuts. It was crazy. Everything you hear on this, it's true. The night before, I had re-listened to my Live at the Hollywood Bowl LP. It came out in 1977. They played at the Hollywood Bowl twice, August of 64, August of 65. Capitol Records rolled out the 3-track machine and said, we're doing a live album. First of all, I don't know how you divide 2 guitars, bass, and drums and 3 vocal mics across 3 tracks. I don't even know how you would do that. But saturating the whole thing was this screaming noise that made the tapes unusable. And George Martin wanted nothing to do with it. He's like, this is unlistenable. But the demand in the mid-70s for Beatle product was just too great, and he reluctantly went in and worked on it, and somehow they did whatever audio magic they could do in the 70s to create this LP. A bit slapdash, as Eddie Izzard would say. You know what I mean? There's your inner sleeve of the girl screaming. And signatures. What did the disc look like? Oh yeah, okay. Had like a ticket stub on the Capitol label. This is a nice thing to have, but I listened to it on the Thursday night with headphones, and it's exhausting. Yeah, the band sounds great. They're rocking away. But there's like this reverb that they put some kind of reverb on the sound of the band to kind of make it a little bit bigger, which it doesn't really do. It just makes it sound like it's got reverb on it. But again, though, I don't know about you. I mean, I'm 44 years old. I've already got a little bit of hearing loss from being a professional musician for 20 years. I don't care who you are. 20 years of snare drums and crash cymbals. It does something to your ears. I'm protecting what I got left, and I'm okay. But still, it's just exhausting. It's really draining to listen to this from beginning to end. This new one, Giles Martin. Is it Giles or Giles Martin? How do you pronounce his name? Write to me, YouTubers. Giles Martin? Okay. I don't know what they did. It's miraculous what modern technology can do, but they have managed to like squash the sound of the screams just enough and bring out the sound of the band. The band sounds great. They're rocking out. And you get 4 bonus tracks on this one as well that aren't on the original LP. You can't do that. Want to Hold Your Hand, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and Babies in Black. It took a little bit longer before the ear fatigue set in. I mean, it was still, by the end of it, it was like, okay, this is pretty intense, man. I can't imagine having to confront this wall of noise every night, practically, for, whatever, 4 years. It's a nice booklet, some nice information in here, some great photos. I don't know why it has to say 8 days a week, a Ron Howard film across the front of it. I mean, yes, I get it that it's a tie-in to the movie, but it would have been nice to make it like a separate thing on its own. But again, minor criticism. I mean, I've said this before. What a blessing it is to have this stuff in our lives, to listen to this music and still appreciate the work that these guys did. So that's my review of the 8 days a week new Beatles situation that's out there. I definitely recommend the film, especially for you people who don't know the story. Those of you that don't want to sit through 10 hours of the anthology up front, go see this movie. It's a great introduction to the story. Quick bit of shameless self-promotion. My new album, Late to the Party, which is available as a free download from my Bandcamp page and from my website, johnmontagna.com. Got a review in the new issue of Bass Player magazine, folks. Check it out, the October 2016 issue. There I am. Check it out, folks. A little bit of press. Late to the Party at johnmontagna.bandcamp.com and the new improved website, johnmontagna.com. You can download the music, you can check out the blog, my tour dates, and there's a direct link to the podcast. Don't forget about the podcast, Radio 418, where I interview my fellow musicians. Thanks for checking me out. I'll see you on the next one. Be well.